Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to the live stream on Monday today. I was thinking of making an episode, but I had like two or three different things to talk about. So I said, you know what? Let's just talk, kind of freestyle it. Let's just talk about those two or three different things. Lots of stuff happening. I wanted to cover some international news as well. So I thought a live stream would be a fun way to do it. I hope you had a good Monday if you're in India, and I hope you're having a good Monday if you are overseas in the US or somewhere around it. So one of the main things I wanted to kind of talk about was the Iran deal because this it's caused a lot of debate. It's caused a lot of people to agree with moving out of the Iran deal, and a lot of people have been saying that, well, this is disastrous because Israel is going to go right back to developing nuclear weapons, and it's going to lead, to the end of the world, and it's going to be horrible, and so on and so forth. So I kind of wanted to discuss it a little bit as well. And recently, Trump announced that he's going to be pulling out of the Iran deal. He'd already called it a terrible deal. I remember when he was campaigning, he called it the worst deal ever, and all of that stuff. And the deal was essentially, for people who don't remember, the deal was signed by President Obama in an executive order. It was not, a lot of people have been saying that this is the United States backing out of a bona fide treaty, and it's not really a treaty. A treaty for in the US, for it to be a treaty, it needs to be ratified by 60 senators, which Obama was not able to do. So he pretty much signed it as an executive order. So when you sign something or when you ratify something as an executive order, what you do is you essentially leave the door open for the next president who's going to come right back in. He's going to go right back and he can come right back out of the deal, which is what essentially Trump has done. So it's not really the United States coming out or backing out of some sort of an international treaty. That's not really what's happened here as well. So the deal essentially was known as the JCPOA, which stands for the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. It was around 6 countries that struck a deal with Iran and said that, look, we're going to lift all these massive sanctions that are on your economy and that are crippling your economy, that we're willing to lift these sanctions as long as you start working towards reducing or abandoning your nuclear program. That's essentially what they said. The deal was made to reduce Iran's ability to produce two main components used in making nuclear weapons. Number one is plutonium and uranium. And President Obama back then had said that every pathway to a nuclear weapon has been cut off. He said that this deal is built not on trust, but actually on verification. So by verification, what he meant that this under the terms of this deal, Iran would have to allow a team from the IAEA or the International Atomic Energy Agency to come in and do an inquiry literally whenever they wanted. But there is still a couple of caveats to it. So what essentially happened is, yes, they can come in and check the Iranian facilities whenever they want. But then what Iran can also do is that Iran can then designate that site as a military site, which then they can launch an inquiry into, and then that buys them some time. On top of that, there's also a 24-day mandated period for any team from the IAEA to come in and then have to inspect the site. So to actually tell the Iranian government that they're going to be coming in and inspecting the site, to actually getting boots on the ground, that can take more than a month, and even around let's say a couple of months or something like that. So in that time period, it's probably impossible to remove all kinds of traces of enrichment if they were indeed doing that. But what I think is interesting in that case is that they can actually remove a lot of evidence in those couple of months between when the IAEA team says that they're coming and between the time that they actually get there. One of the very interesting examples of this was there was a facility called Lavizan in Iran, and I think it was downtown Tehran in 2003, and the IAEA was concerned that they were using that site to enrich uranium and things like that. So what they did was they said that, okay, we're going to come and inspect that facility. But between them making that announcement and actually getting boots on the ground to inspect that facility, it took about a year and a half. And in between that time, if you actually look, there's publicly available satellite footage available. So if you see it from 2003, when they announced it, to when they got there, the entire facility, Lavizan facility, had been removed. And all traces of any kinds of enrichment or any evidence had been removed as well. So, the Iranians don't waste their time, and they still had wiggle room to kind of hide evidence if they wanted to as well. One of the biggest kind of contentions to that program that they had, one of the biggest contentions to this deal that people had, was this thing called a sunset clause. Now, a lot of people are wondering what the sunset clause is. So what the sunset clause is that after a certain period of time, the some of the sanctions would slowly start getting lifted away from Iran as well. And then Iran, if they wanted, could go right back to developing nuclear weapons and nuclear program as well. And the other two things that are very interesting here is that the deal focuses only on the enrichment aspect of it. The deal never really focuses on number one, which I think is the most important thing today in the past few years that they really should have focused on, is number one, is that the deal should have been incumbent on Iran not funding or supporting any terrorist activities across the globe. Like if you look at Hezbollah, if you look at Hamas, if you look at all of these organizations, if you look at what Iran is doing with the Houthi rebels in Yemen, it should have been incumbent on Iran not being able to support or fund any terrorist activities across the globe. That's the only way that these sanctions would be lifted. So that is not connected to it at all. The second thing is that Iran can still develop ICBMs being intercontinental ballistic missiles. So Iran can still develop all the infrastructure that it needs to develop a nuclear bomb. And the only thing that they can't do is enrich uranium. So essentially, they can develop all the infrastructure that they want. And once the deal time is over, they can go right back to developing a nuclear bomb. So that's where a lot of people felt that this deal was lacking. That's where a lot of people with this felt that this deal is actually not really stopping Iran from building a nuclear weapon. That's my editor, my special guest, the little cat over there. Not just stopping Iran from developing a nuclear weapon, but actually paving the way for Iran to develop a nuclear weapon as well. And the interesting thing is what Trump is saying that forced his hand is Netanyahu essentially came out a few days ago and he said that, well, Israel had obtained some 55,000 pages of documents and around 183 CDs worth of secret information from an Iranian nuclear weapons program called Project Ahmad. And he said that it was gained from like an Iranian facility. And essentially what it said, that the document that they have recovered, it talks about developing and testing 5 nuclear warheads, and that they are really looking back. What they're essentially looking to do, Iran, is as soon as the deal period is over, they're looking to redevelop nuclear weapons, and they're looking to hit Israel again. That is essentially what Netanyahu came out, and he said now he has not really provided what the evidence is, which you don't really tend to provide evidence in these sort of espionage cases. So I mean, your guess is as good as mine, kind of when it comes to how legitimate this information is. But usually Israel is pretty spot on with their information. So I don't know, to make of it as you will. He also said in the briefing that he was giving from the information that he's recovered that the project Ahmad was disbanded in 2003, but its director, Mohsin Fakhrizadeh, he continued his work until today under another agency called Sapan. So he said that what Netanyahu essentially said, that even though on paper this had been removed, but the work still kept happening, and they're still looking to develop those programs, and that's why essentially Trump said that he backed out of the plan. Now, I don't really know. I think it's a good idea because I don't think that the deal was essentially a good deal, particularly of the 2 cases that are referred to, that It places no restrictions on international terrorism. It places no restrictions on developing ICBMs. So I don't really think that this deal was complete. I don't really think that this deal was in the interests of the Middle East in general. So I think it's a good idea to pull out of it. Now, I don't know what the solution to it is. People are saying that they might still be able to convince Trump to renegotiate a new deal with Iran. I don't know. We'll see if that happens or that doesn't happen. I think what would be ideal is to renegotiate a deal with Iran where you place those restrictions on Iran that were not placed before. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. I don't know what people think about it as well. Of course, Great Britain and Germany, they have all been saying that you know, maybe hopefully we can renegotiate something. Maybe hopefully we can stay in this kind of deal as well. But again, we'll have to wait to see and kind of figure out what happens with that. The other thing that's happening that I think is interesting is the Jerusalem embassy, which is opening, I think, right now, which has been inaugurated just recently in Jerusalem, and a lot of people have lost their minds about it. I remember I did a video about it a few months ago when this decision was initially announced by by Trump as well. And actually, before I go into that, I just read a comment here from from I think Asim Mishra that said that Pakistan is a big problem and Pakistan needs to have a certain similar deal offered on them as well. And I tend to agree with that, man. Like if you look at it, yeah, Iran currently has more power, and Iran currently has more influence in terms of creating real trouble for the U.S. and for a lot of countries in the Middle East in terms of creating in terms of terrorism. But if you look at Pakistan, they're essentially kind of doing similar things as well. They already have nuclear weapons. I mean, Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons yet. Pakistan already has nuclear weapons. Pakistan already is known to be a sponsor of terrorism in India, in Pakistan, and across different countries as well. And yeah, you're very right, Prince, that it's nuclear weapons in hands of a rogue country, which is essentially controlled by the army. So there's much more likely a chance of you know terrorists getting their hands on those nuclear weapons in Pakistan rather than terrorists getting their hands on the nuclear weapons in Iran, because they don't really have those nuclear weapons yet. So I mean, what we should really be looking at and what really India should be uh, talking to the United States and India should be talking to the international community should be about negotiating a similar deal with Pakistan, because if you look at it, it's a country with nuclear weapons. So right off the bat, it poses more danger to the world than a country like Iran, for instance, which doesn't really have the nuclear weapons program yet. I know and again, I'm not saying that the deal exactly the way it was, what you call it, the deal exactly the way it was developed for Iran might not work for Pakistan because it didn't work for Iran. So you're right there. But I think it'll be interesting to see, like, if they can actually renegotiate a particular deal with Iran and actually properly check their nuclear program and properly check their ability to cause problems with funding terrorism across the globe. I don't know. I think that's something that could work with Pakistan as well. But again, we'll have to see first and foremost if it works with Iran first. So again, that's something that we'll have to look at, and that's something that's going to be interesting as well. But again, we should, that's something that could be an interesting idea to kind of explore in the future. I don't know what you guys might think about that. Let me know what you think in the comment section below and in the live chat as well. Now again, we were talking about the Jerusalem embassy, and that, I feel like that's an interesting one as well. Like I said before, I made a video on that when it first came out, when news first broke, and I remember the media. The media went absolutely ballistic. They completely lost their minds that if you announce Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel, then the whole Middle East is going to devolve into chaos and bloodshed and fire and fury and all that nonsense. And if you really think about it, none of that really happen. People will say that there's going to be a lot more violence, and my answer to them at that point was that, look, when has there not been violence in the Middle East, especially with the Palestinians and the Iranis and the Israelis? Like, there's always been violence. Naming Palestine, naming Jerusalem as the capital of Israel is not going to change anything. They're going to still have their day of violence. They're going to still have their day of raids. They're going to still keep doing their stone pelting the way they keep doing their stone pelting in Kashmir, no matter how much you try to reach out to them, no matter how much you try to, uh, you know, give them soft sops and give them, handle them with soft arms. It's not going to work. So naming Jerusalem as the capital of Israel isn't particularly going to really change anything. So, and if you look at it, Jerusalem has always been a very important place for the Jews. It's been mentioned in their religious text hundreds of times, and there's always been a longing and there's always been a desire among the Jews to come back and live in Israel and come back and claim Jerusalem as their capital. In fact, this is part of their national anthem, Hatikva, as well, which talks about the hope of 2,000 years of coming back to live in their homeland. So it's a very important place for them. And like I said, the Muslims have their own important places like Mecca and Medina, and there is no other people, trying to stake a claim on those areas. So it kind of reminds me of the Ram Janmabhoomi issue as well. If you look at it, like Ram Janmabhoomi is an area that is very, very deeply important to a lot of Hindus, particularly in North India. It's a very important place for a lot of Hindus. But again, uh, that's an area that is not even of that much importance to the Muslims, right? But again, it's something that we can't even build a temple. We can't even build a temple on a site that is so important to Hindus in general. So I think there's a lot of parallels between Jerusalem and kind of Ram Janmabhoomi and Ayodhya there as well. So I feel like I feel personally that it's a good step that they've taken. I feel like personally that the United States has taken these steps also for two different reasons. One of the reasons is to again bolster Israel, which to make Israel stronger, and to throw its support behind Israel, because they're realizing that due to Obama's policies, Israel has become the foremost power in the Middle East. Israel, the U.S. government started actually arming the rebels instead of helping Bashar al-Assad quash the rebels first. So it essentially indirectly led to the rise of Iran in the Middle East. And what the US government is now trying to do is trying to backtrack some of that. So they're throwing their support behind Israel. They're saying that we support you no matter what. We'll also support giving Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And if you notice, something interesting happened as well. There was not a lot of uh, noises from the Saudis when this was announced. I mean, they obviously said, this is not nice and this and that or whatever, but there wasn't a lot of noise. They didn't say that there's going to be a day of rage and there's going to be fire and fury and blood flowing on the streets or anything of like that, because even the Saudis realize that, look, man, Iran is our mortal enemy, and Iran is becoming very, very, very strong in the region. So what we need to do is we need to actually find common cause with the Jews. That we need to actually team up with the Jews here and make sure that the Iranians are first taken care of before we do anything else. So, in my opinion, actually moving the embassy to Jerusalem is actually a pretty smart move. So, I don't know. We'll see about that. We'll see how that turns out as well. And again, a lot of people, I remember when that news first broke, a lot of people were also talking about, well, give peace a chance. You're removing all the chances of peace by taking this step that can exist between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And for those people, I wanted to just remind them of the Hamas charter. And if you actually look at the Hamas charter, Hamas is it's not really looking for peace. What the Hamas charter, if you actually look at it, let me just read you a couple of things from the Hamas charter as well. The Hamas charter calls for an Islamic state, the formation of Islamic state. The Hamas charter calls for the utter and complete destruction of Israel. It calls for the supremacy of Islam. It calls for no solution to this land problem between the Israelis and between the Iranians other than jihad. They say jihad is the only solution to this problem. So, in terms of peace, I don't know if a Hamas and Israel chat is going to necessarily lead to that kind of peace. You know what I mean? And also, I remember when I was a kid, and I remember from before as well. You'd see these leaders, these Israeli leaders, and you'd see the Palestinian leaders or the Hamas leaders on the lawns of the White House, shaking hands with Clinton, shaking hands with Bush, and 1 month after that, violence would break out. So all these treaties and all these peace treaties and all this peaceful hugging and handshaking, it didn't really lead anywhere. So maybe a decision like giving um, what you might call it, giving Israelis Jerusalem and declaring Jerusalem as the capital of Israelis, that might lead to something. That it might lead to some sort of solutions, and it's already led to the formation of a weird, unlikely alliance between the Saudis and the Iranians and the Israelis. Sorry. So, I think again, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here as well. And a lot of people are texting about the Karnataka elections as well. And the Karnataka elections, man, I honestly don't have a clue. I don't really know what's going on because a lot of these bloody opinion polls, I've been trying to read these opinion polls and I'm getting really sick of these opinion polls because all of these opinion polls are saying like weird things. And by and large, all the opinion polls are saying that it's going to be very close. It's most likely going to be hung house and I don't know, all of that kind of stuff. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the Karnataka elections. I feel like JDS might become a kingmaker-like situation, might be in a kingmaker-like situation. If that happens, that's going to be very interesting as well, because if JDS is in a kingmaker-like situation, some people are saying that JDS has been offered the chief minister post or the vice chief deputy chief minister post. But the interesting thing is that Siddaramaiah left the JDS, and Siddaramaiah had a lot of problems with the JDS. So, if JDS is in a kingmaker-like position, will the BJP be able to kind of pull the JDS towards itself, or will Siddaramaiah be able to tie things up with JDS and be able to work out some sort of a you know agreement with them? So that's going to be very interesting to see as well. I'm actually, this is what I wanted to talk to you guys about, whoever's watching. I'm actually going to be doing a live breakdown of the Karnataka elections. Once the elections are announced, I'm going to be doing a live breakdown of the Karnataka elections. I'm also going to be doing the impact that the result of this election is going to have on the state elections that are going to be coming up in December in Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, and also the impact of this election that's going to be taking place in 2019 as well. So we're going to be doing a breakdown tomorrow night. I think it's tomorrow. Yeah, it is going to be tomorrow night. We're going to be doing a breakdown of the elections. So it's going to be a complete breakdown of the Karnataka elections. What happened, where did either party go wrong or right. So we're going to be doing that, and we're also going to be doing a look at the assembly elections in 2018 and then a look at the assembly elections in 2019. So please make sure to join us. I will be talking to Kishore Narayan. Now, Kishore Narayan is a guy that was born and bred in Karnataka. So he's lived his whole life in Karnataka. He's lived his whole life in Bangalore, and he writes for this blog called Mind Makers. And he's also very knowledgeable on the Karnataka situation and the Karnataka elections as well. So it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a very interesting discussion. Like I said before, I've told you guys before that I'm not very, very, what you might call it, tuned into the Karnataka elections. I don't know that much about it, but Kishore does. So Kishore and I are going to have a very good chat about it. So please make sure to come and join us live tomorrow night for that as well. And yeah, again, some people are saying that JDS might align with the BJP. Some people are saying that JDS might align with the Congress. I honestly, again, have no idea. Your guess is kind of as good as mine on that. Again, BJP might be able to lower him. They've been very good at making these alliances recently. If you look at all the other states, BJP is very become very good, particularly in the Northeast. If you look at them, BJP has been very good at making alliances. So I don't know if they'll be able to make that alliance with the JDS. If the JDS ends up in the kingmaker position, I don't know if Siddaramaiah is going to be able to move away from the differences that he has and the animosity that he possesses towards the JDS and be able to then form an alliance with them. But I would think I would think that either party is going to go all out in courting the JDS if the JDS ends up in the kingmaker position as well. What do you think of Raga's statement of him being prime minister in 2019? I don't know, man. It's it's kind of crazy that that guy is still being pushed as a serious prime ministerial candidate, because I honestly think that the Congress party could do better in terms of prime ministerial candidate. I honestly think so. Like, I don't know. Again, if you look at even Karnataka, if Congress party wins Karnataka, it is not going to be because of Rahul Gandhi. It's going to be because of Siddaramaiah. Rahul Gandhi has not had much to do with Karnataka winning, with Congress party winning in Karnataka, and that's the same thing I think with BJP as well. If the BJP wins in Karnataka, I mean, it's not going to be because of Modi primarily. People say, "Oh, it's Modi who won," but it's actually going to be Yediyurappa, because Yediyurappa is, like I said, BJP's tallest leader in Karnataka, and if the BJP wins in Karnataka, I think it's largely going to be due to Yediyurappa uh, as well. So I don't know. We'll see how the election goes. I'm very interested in seeing. This is a very hard to call election. Like, even in the elections that are coming up in, say, December in Rajasthan, I think a lot of people are saying that because of just simply the amount of anti-incumbency that has been built up against Vasundhara Raje, and the amount of anti-incumbency that has been probably been built up against Shivraj Singh Chauhan as well, that they're going to be that people are probably, it's smarter to favor Congress to win in those elections. But this election is a hard one, man. It's gonna be very interesting to see how that happens as well. This What about Assam CM threatening resignation due to influx of Hindu migrants? I mean, I honestly feel that the Assam should probably be focusing on, the illegal Muslim immigration that's coming in, because that's been a more serious problem. Look, I completely understand. I think this is an important point, because this requires more nuance than people are generally willing to put in. Like, if you actually look at Assam or any other state, if you have a state and you get a massive influx of people from another state, and they're taking all the jobs, even the menial jobs, whatever, they're taking all the jobs, and you feel like your culture is being kind of lost. I get that. I understand that. That's kind of what's happened in Kashmir. You look at the Rohingya migration that's happening in Jammu, and a lot of Hindus there are feeling like they're going to lose their culture, they're going to lose out their land and things like that. So I understand that aspect of it, but at the same time, I think it's so much better to have Hindu migrants coming in from Bangladesh, from Myanmar, from all of those Muslim majority nations than the Muslim migrants coming in, because that changes the demography in a way that you can never really recover from. If you have Hindu migrants coming into Assam, you can still recover from your demography, and you can still maintain your culture, and so on and so forth. But with the Muslim population, I think you're maintaining your culture and your demography in Assam is going to be a lot harder. So I think that's something that the SMEs should really focus on. I don't know. That's again that's again my opinion. I think the Hindu migrants there are illegal, kind of like the Muslim migrants are as well. But again, I feel like the Hindu migrants there have nowhere else to go. They have no other home. They have literally nowhere else to go. So, and I think it is our duty as well, as a nation, as the last refuge of all Hindus. If you look at it, Hindus have nowhere else to go but India. So I think being that country, I think we have a responsibility to take in Hindus when, if and when we can as well, because that's what Israel does. If there are countries, for example, France, you look at France and you look at all the attacks that have happened on Jews in France, then Israel tells them, look, if you are in danger, then come here. We will take care of you. We will take you in. And I think we need to do that as well. I think India needs to take that responsibility of Hindus across the world as well. Because if you look at how strong the Jewish diaspora is and much how much it cares for what's happening in Israel, I mean, that's the way we get the Hindu diaspora across the world to truly care about India, if we show them that we actually care about them as well. Now, a lot of people says that, because I think India should do this, is because I don't think that India should have Muslims. That's not what I'm saying. There has to be a difference between these two things. Muslims that are born in India have as much of a right to India as Hindus that are born in India. But what I'm also saying, I'm completely happy that they are here, and they are my brothers and sisters, and all I wish is for the Hindus of this India to be able to get along with the Muslims of this area and to live in peace. That's a separate thing. This part of it is different, that we are the last refuge of all Hindus in the world, so we should be able to take Hindus in their time of need. That's what I'm saying essentially. And yeah, it is I think it is a lack of unity among the Hindus, and I think this is something that we should do as well. One of the biggest gripes that I have with the BJP government is, if the BJP government wins in Karnataka, let's say the BJP government wins in Karnataka, we really need to set down some ground rules for the BJP government once it comes to power. And we haven't been able to really call them out that much on their on certain ground rules as well. Number one would be resettlement of the Kashmiri Hindus, and back in Kashmir. Number two would be stopping of these illegal immigration of the Rohingyas and all these illegal Bangladeshis that are coming into Assam, into West Bengal, into Kashmir, all of these places. That's going to be the second uh, kind of ground rule. The third ground rule would be removing the temples from the control of the government, because in their manifesto for the Karnataka, the BJP government has also said that they're looking to, have this much money that is going to go towards temple restoration and upkeeping of temples and so on and so forth. But I think what I would prefer, and I think what most Hindus would prefer, is to have the governments completely stay away from temples. If the governments completely stay away from temples, then the temples get to decide what they want to do with their money, which is what the mosques tend to decide, and which is what the churches get to decide. Hindus should be able to get to decide, and Hindu temples should be able to get to decide what they do with those things as well. So I think these are certain ground rules that we need to kind of call out the BJP on as well. And I think what we should do, what the BJP government should ideally do, is they should look at sending more and settling more Hindus in Kashmir, settling more Hindus in Karnataka, where we're being outnumbered. So I don't know. I think it's a good idea to set up a good. Uh, I think it's a good idea to set up a set of ground rules for all Hindus that we can talk to the BJP government about, and that we can hold the BJP government accountable for. So I think that's something that would be interesting. If you think that there should be certain ground rules, please let me know in the chat, and please let me know in the comment section below as well what you would want those ground rules to be. I've told you my three main ground rules is that we need to look at population control, we need to look at temples being freed from government control, and we need to look at resettlement of Kashmiri Hindus back in Kashmir. And you're right, yeah, Article 370. Article 370 is removing Article 370 is a good one. Uniform Civil Code is a good one. If we can get Uniform Civil Code passed, then I think we can really look at getting I think getting our hands on population control. I was reading an interesting article the other day where they were talking about that the total fertility rate of India of overall in the country is reaching the ideal rate. So I think the ideal is like 2.4 or 2.1 or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but what it said that it was reaching the ideal rate, and it's going to get there in the next couple of decades. So that's an encouraging sign. But I think that's something, again, we can work a little bit better at. Yeah, I know we should have large families, but the thing is that we have some restraints in terms of resources as well. We can't just win this, just keep populating and survive here for long. We need to make the point clear to our Muslim brothers and sisters as well that look, this is not beneficial for anyone. You're thinking that you're just gonna, you know, upar wali ki deen hai and all that, but that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for either anybody. So we need to figure out a way where we can solve this problem. Because I honestly do believe that if Muslims can let go of their this feelings that some Muslims have. Again, this is not all Muslims, obviously, because I know a lot of Muslim families that have just either one child or just two children, right? So there are tons of Muslim families like that as well. Like there are tons of Hindu families. But I feel like there is this mentality among some Muslim families that we need to outpopulate the Hindus. We need to be more in number than the Hindus. If they can let go of that kind of idea, and they are happy that okay, 15% Muslims, 85% Hindus, that's fine. You know, if they can get let go of that mentality, I think that can solve 70% of the problems that exist between Hindus and Muslims. I honestly, truly believe that. Once Hindus are stop being afraid, once Hindus stop being afraid of becoming a minority in their own country, I think 70% of our problems can be solved. I don't know what you guys think about that. If you guys agree, again, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know in the chat. But I don't know. That's my feeling on the matter. That's my feeling on the matter. So yeah, what have we talked about? Um, we've talked about Jerusalem. We've talked about um, the Trump embassy in Jerusalem. We've talked about the Iran deal. We've talked about the Karnataka elections. We've talked about a bunch of stuff today, man. I wasn't even planning to talk about like half the stuff that we talked about. So that's interesting. I like it. I like doing like this freestyle kind of stuff on YouTube sometimes. It's fun. So I don't know. The two-child policy, like I agree that I think it's the two-child policy could be good, but I don't think we should have like a law that only two children, nothing more than that. I think like two to three children, and after that, you're gonna get fined. It's gonna be a heavy fine. I don't know, something like that. I think two to three children for all families should be fine. And again, like I said, I read an article about reaching that total fertility rate. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think not just the government. I think the people themselves need to take kind of responsibility for that as well. And we need to really push for that uniform civil code. If you really want some long-lasting changes to happen, we need to start pushing for that uniform civil code. So yeah, once we start pushing for that uniform civil code, I think we can really make a dent in the population problem. Until then, I don't know if necessarily something big or any big changes are going to happen. So yeah, hey man, today it was fun talking to you guys today. It was fun kind of ranting, watching the comments, reading off the comments, talking to people here. This was fun. We should do this more often. I'm going to start. So again, join me tomorrow because I'm going to be live tomorrow as well. So join me tomorrow to do a live breakdown of the Karnataka elections. Let's see what the election results are going to be like. Let's see if we're going to be laughing or we're going to be crying. I'm going to be smiling all the way, man. I'm not really bothered that much, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Come join us. Kishore is a very knowledgeable guy. He'll have a lot of answers for you guys as well. Again, get in touch with us in the comment section as well. I'm gonna try and see if we can get if me or Kishore can answer some of your questions. So tomorrow is gonna be fun. So again, come join us tomorrow. If you are not subscribed to the channel, subscribe kar lo. Get subscribed to the channel. If you enjoyed today's video, give it a like. If you didn't enjoy, don't worry about it. Thank you for participating. Again, join us tomorrow. We will see you tomorrow live as well. And until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you soon.